Warning, I swear a lot.
So you were saying DLC for Sekiro?
Yeah, because it's such an interesting world, and there's so much they could have expanded on and explained or delved deeper into. I don't think they really needed to explain anything. It's just there was so much there that was left kind of like threads hanging, where they could have done more. And I don't understand why they didn't. Because I thought it sold really well, it was really well received, and then they just kind of left it.
I think the issue potentially there is that Sekiro, as we discussed before the mic went on, was was one of the first examples of FromSoftware being like, okay, let's tell an actual story with characters and plot. And granted, they all are along those lines, but this is the first time they actually focused on it. But they still kind of clinged to the vagueness, look into the world, see what you can find, and that's fine, of course, we've discussed how it's fine. But for Sekiro, I think this is the sentiment you shared, they should definitely just be more like, tell a story. We want to know.
And they did that. It might just be, I suppose, it might be that they can write a beginning, a middle, but they struggle in the end. Because from the Dark Souls games I've played, there isn't like an ending. There's just a vague, your character has done this.
Yeah, there's not an ending, there's a final boss.
There's a final boss, there's an inkling of an ending. Like in Dark Souls 2, you go into the chamber and you can become I don't know what the title they give it to.
You just become the king, really, don't you?
You become the king, and they just say, now everything will repeat, and that's it. And it's just kind of...
I mean, there is... do you know what happens after you beat the DLC?
No.
Then I won't discuss it now, but... There is not something. I'm not going to build you up for something that you're not going to see.
Yeah.
But there is something there where you're like, oh, okay. And that I'm not going to try and talk my way around this because I'm going to accidentally let slip stuff, and that's not fair. But they do sort of do something. But the issue with most Souls games, in my opinion, at least in terms of their story, is as you say, they just don't end them. And I get the point behind Dark Souls, the very theme that the series has been based on the whole time is a cycle.
Yeah.
Rebirth, pretty much. Yeah. And I believe Dark Souls 3 was supposed to be the break in the chain. I think that's where... I haven't beaten Dark Souls 3. I don't remember what the ending is, but from what I've heard, that is the idea behind that. And that's all well and good, but even if you are going to have a series where the whole idea is that the same shit is happening over and over again, games need a note of finality. You need to beat you need to finish a story. You need to beat an experience. Even Mass Effect, who 1 and 2 were leading into 3. That's the whole idea. It's a story across 3 arcs.
Yeah, but
an arc has an ending.
Yeah, and in Mass Effect 1, you had an arc, ends, teaser for the next one. Mass Effect 2, you had an arc, had an ending, teaser for the next one. Mass Effect 3 had an arc, you had the ending. It wasn't very good, but it was an ending.
It did end, technically.
Yeah, it's just... I don't know.
I'm really torn about it, because as we've discussed, my feelings on Souls have varied wildly over the years. And things which I praised it for before are things I question now.
Yeah. I feel like it would almost serve well to be... I don't think it would serve well to be a series or a movie. Maybe like a small self-contained one-shot. Maybe just a half hour of a single segment. But I think it would serve well to be either novelised or be put into a graphic novel.
Possibly.
I feel like the style and the aesthetic of the games would lend themselves well to those two mediums. A novel where you could properly flesh out everything into the depth that you kind of want it to be, and it to be more accessible than it is in the game, or a graphic novel to do kind of a mixture of showing more of the world and more of the characters and more of the implications of actions, while still delving into everything, not in as much depth, but in more depth than what you get.
Just quickly, did I? It's probably fine. The part of the issue I think I realised with Dark Souls is that each game has a nation and or nations involved, right? Like
Yeah.
Dark Souls 1 has like Astora and the Far East and stuff like that. Dark Souls 2 has Drangleic. Dark Souls 3 has something. I don't remember what. The issue with those is that every game they have these nations that have fallen as a result of the undead curse. And
Aren't they kind of in the same place though?
Kinda.
Because I'm sure I went into several areas in I don't want to say Dragon Age 2 then. Dark Souls 2, and thought, this looks very similar to Anor Londo.
Dark Souls 2 has serious problems with its geography.
Yeah.
Serious problems. But the implication is that these are different kingdoms or nations, or at the very least different factions. There are multiple groups of people in each of the games. The problem, which I wanted to mention, is that at the end of each game, they take all those nations, all those peoples, and throw them out.
And just start afresh.
They may mention them in the next game, maybe, but they are gone. Lost to history.
I feel like
it's hard to build any kind of cohesive narrative when you take everything you just made
and
throw it out and go, we're starting again.
I feel like, I don't know if I'm correct in this, but in my interpretation of the little bits of lore I got playing Dark Souls 2, it kind of felt like it was an indeterminate time in the future after Dark Souls 1, set in the same location, with the ruins of the first game being the basis of the ruins of the second.
That's the implication.
And it's interesting because I'm sure there's some implications with the holders of the flame in the first game being either represented with descendants in the second. I'm pretty sure, is it Nico, the skeleton boy?
Ah, yes, Skelly Boy.
I think he's referenced somewhere, and he's got a disciple or a descendant somewhere in Dark Souls 2.
I believe, it's in varying levels of confirmed, but I believe the 4 great souls that you need in Dark Souls 2 to get into Castle Drangleic are holders of the souls of those 4 great beings from Dark Souls 1. For instance, the, what's her fucking name? Prisoner Lady...
Lost Sinner.
Lost Sinner holds the Witch of Izalith's soul. And you can tell, because of its very minor detail, when the fight starts, there's a little bug that goes back into the mask.
Yeah.
That's the Witch of Izalith. That's her soul, controlling the Sinner, whatever her fucking name is. I'm guessing the Rotten would probably be Nito, that's it, Nito.
Yeah.
Great dude. Because of the use of corpses.
Yeah.
Who else is the great? It's been so long since I've played Dark Souls 2. Who are the other ones?
The other great souls.
The Fire King.
Yeah, Fire King.
I guess that's probably Gwyn. No, he's not one of the 4, is he?
He is, isn't he?
Is Gwyn one of the 4?
I think he is.
Because you got the 4 kings as well, who are they're one of the great souls you need.
I think it's...
I don't know if that
it's
counts.
just Gwyn is the holder of the soul.
I think it's just supposed to be Gwyn. Yeah, because he gave part of his soul to the 4 kings, didn't he? Was that how that worked?
I don't know.
Fucking no, I've turned on the microphone and now we're speculating.
I don't know, I'm still interested in the conversation though.
Yeah, no, I want to keep
delving into it.
Look, you guys have to know that we're probably not entirely... We're not 100% on everything we say. It's speculation.
No,
for the moment, let's assume that it's Gwyn's soul and the Iron
Yeah.
King, because fire. So it kind of... Yeah, no, fire. Because Witch of Izalith would be the other fire. That's in the Lost Sinner. We got that. The last one...
what's the last one?
I'm having a lot of trouble remembering. So Old Iron King, the Rotten...
The Spider.
Spider. Yeah, Duke's dear friend.
Daughter. Yeah.
And who was... Yes, no, because I think that's supposed to be Seath. Which is...
The Scaleless.
Seath the Scaleless, yeah. Which I think the implication there was confirmed by the fact that there is a fucking dragon corpse in Freya's nest. It's just this big, like, you have to use a soul to interact with it. There's this big fuck-off dragon skeleton.
Yes, and you go into its memory.
And I don't know if that's actually Seath himself, but
I don't think so, because I remember it being scaled.
Yeah, but I think that's what the implication they were trying to go with. I lose confidence in this theory as I discuss it, but
Yeah.
I think they were at least perhaps trying to symbolise those connections.
Yeah, or at least do, like, parallels.
Yeah, I think parallels might be a more apt thing. It's definitely the Witch of Izalith with the Lost Sinner, though.
Yeah.
Because that's quite blatant.
Yeah, that makes more sense, because I didn't twig that, because I haven't got all the way through Dark Souls 1 to get to the Witch of Izalith. So I saw them making sure that you paid close attention to the bug, and then I wasn't sure why they did that.
Well, unfortunately, I appear to have spoiled something for you, but...
It's fine. It's not. It's something that I would probably have looked up anyway, because I would have been curious about why they made you pay such close attention to that for no payoff.
Well, it's weird the way they do it, because it is front and centre, but it's very quick.
Yeah.
So you kind of just be like, oh, it's just kind of something fucked up, really, and it's part of the sinner's punishment, perhaps.
Yeah.
When the meaning is actually probably quite different. Came a long way from Sekiro, though.
Yeah. But no, I think that kind of leads credence to our idea that Sekiro didn't get DLC because they didn't know how to end the story.
I agree.
They don't seem to ever end a story.
Yeah, as we were literally saying, the whole purpose of Dark Souls was to just not end the story.
No.
Really.
Go back to a beginning rather than an ending.
Which is effective when you want to make sequels.
Yeah.
When you think about it, it's actually almost kind of smart.
Yeah. But, I don't know.
Does leave a sense of unsatisfaction, though.
Yeah. I liked... They do leave it kind of final, sort of, in some of the endings. But again, they lead back to the circular nature of Dark Souls, because in Sekiro, the ending I got, I ended up killing the child, and I became the woodcarver. I almost felt like we're circling back again, because the woodcarver was originally a woodcarver because he failed his lord and was punished. I think he was punished. He either punishes himself or he's punished to be a monk. I think he punishes himself, and that's why he's isolated himself.
And I guess there you could sort of interpret it as being like the cycle of violence leads to the same outcome, perhaps. Or the circle of failure, maybe.
Yeah. And it's kind of satisfying because you see where the woodcarver ends up, where he eventually falls to his own desires and becomes this demon of wrath.
Which is cool.
Like, it's a cool design, and it's a cool implication for his character, because even throughout the fight, he's like, I don't know if he talks during the fight, but at the end when you kill him, I think he thanks you for ending him and putting him out of his misery.
I do remember that.
And it kind of feels like that's where Wolf is going, but I don't quite understand. I don't think it would be in the same way, because there's no one for him to be wrathful against. I'd say he'd be more consumed by sorrow, because he doesn't fail his lord in that there's ever an explicit way that's mentioned specifically that you can look out for to save him. It's just something you discover by chance if you're looking for it.
It's the thing with a lot of Japanese mythology and the folktales and the like, is they do approach them very differently to how a lot of Western societies follow them, where it's like demons tend to spawn from how you live / what you do. So people who kill a lot become like demons.
Yeah,
of like
and
whatever.
a lot of Japanese spirits and folklore come from items being possessed. So like swords that are thrown away and discarded become evil spirits because they feel like they've failed in their purpose.
Yeah.
And good spirits come from items that are loved and cherished and well used, and they become inhabited by good spirits. I think it's Kodama and Arigatama. Don't quote me on that, but I'm thinking close.
Bruh, I can't dispute you.
So it's all, I think Japanese folklore tends to originate from the humans' influence on everything around them rather than the spirits influencing them.
Seems to be sort of born from, but they're like born from acts, kind of, as it were. Like,
yeah.
It's like it's not like I don't know. This person died and longed. Although this does happen, this person died and longed for revenge. It's more like a lot of people were sad here, or a great tragedy befell nearby, giving rise to a spirit of that situation.
Yeah.
That represents it, which is actually I personally feel a pretty cool way of doing that.
Yeah.
Great for narrative purposes as well.
Yeah, that's why I like Neo, because that's what they lead into. Because there's not a lot of the spirits don't have an influence on the people in Neo. Neo, the characters influence the world through the Great Unification War with Hideyoshi and I can't remember his name, but the other one that actually does it.
I remember precious few names in Neo.
Yeah, but it's more their heinous actions in the war spawn more evil spirits that then escalate the situation.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting way to tell stories where instead of the spirits being the driving force behind everything that's happening, it's the spirits are reacting to the world, and that's what's causing the issues.
Well, it's kind of like the multiplayer update for Ghost of Tsushima Legends, in which the basic premise of that is on the online, instead of just fighting Mongols, though you do fight Mongols, you're typically fighting demons and Oni, and these demons and Oni were released due to the act of the Mongols making land and invading Tsushima.
Yeah.
That act just sent the spirits going.
Yeah.
And Oni just popped up everywhere. And then as that sort of progresses, the Mongols themselves are working with Oni, because the Oni are like, fuck these guys, because, you know, obviously a lot of Japanese culture is about warding off demons.
Yeah.
Especially back then. So they see the Mongols just want to conquer the place, and they're like, well, enemy of my enemy. Hence why they would end up working together and stuff. But it's interesting to see that, where it's like just the act of an invasion.
Yeah.
Not one specific killing, not one specific village burning, just the entire event of an invasion.
Yeah.
Sets it off. And it's presented as a story, to be fair. It's not presented to be fact, but it's an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
And it provides some good context for the gameplay.
Yeah. And that's all you really need. You just need context that loops in. The gameplay needs to work with the story. So when it does, that works really well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when they complement each other, you end up with a good, solid game. It's like when you have stuff that contradicts the story, like in Tomb Raider, the reboots.
Yeah.
It makes a big deal out of Lara's first kill, but by the time you get to Lara's first kill in the cutscene, you've already killed like 50, 60 unnamed guards.
Yeah.
Savagely.
Quite aggressively, yeah.
With gurgles and death rolls, and Lara just rushes it off, but she shoots this one guy and it breaks her, which is interesting from a story, but you have that disconnect with gameplay. I think there's a proper term and a word for it.
I think is it narrative dissonance?
That's the one, narrative dissonance. And that's an interesting hole to go down, because when you think about it, there's quite a few games where your actions as a character in no way match with your actions as a character in the larger narrative.
See, it gives me an excuse to talk about Tsushima, so I'm glad we've come down this path. But me and Sweetman talked about this at length while we were playing Tsushima, as at the not trying to give spoilers here, but it's not really spoilers, because the game's called Ghost of Tsushima. Dude's on the front wearing ninja armor, so clearly it's a stealth game.
Yeah.
That kind of goes at odds with the samurai code.
Yeah.
Dude's a samurai, you have to suspect some kind of change is going to occur here.
Yeah.
But near the start of the game, main character, character's talking to main character, alright, go up there, slit his throat. And Jin's like, no, I'm not doing that. And on multiple occasions, without your input, Jin will stand up, walk towards the opponent, and be like, fight me, and then you have to fight them.
Yeah.
Jin is making that decision because Jin is a samurai.
Yeah.
Eventually, because it's a stealth game, so it would be a bit weird if you didn't, you do actually have to go start slitting people up. You go to claim your first stealth kill, as it were,
Yeah.
and Jin fucks it up.
Yeah.
Like, it's honestly a hilarious scene, but, like, it's to show that he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And throughout the start of the game, throughout early parts of the game, before you can upgrade your knife,
Yeah.
which increases speed and silence of your assassinations, when Jin kills people, he doesn't just stab them, he's, like, stabbing them, dragging them to the ground slowly, and continuously stabbing them, because he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's a samurai, he fights, he does not murder. But as the story progresses, as you do this more, and as you upgrade your knife for increased speed, Jin becomes more comfortable with doing it. And the speed of his assassinations become faster and more efficient, to the point where, at max efficiency, he literally walk up, stab someone in the neck, they go down. There's no fucking around, because Jin doesn't enjoy it. He doesn't cry about it.
No.
He's not, like, having big fucking speeches about how he hates it. He sees it as necessary.
Yeah.
He really doesn't like it. It goes against everything he was raised to believe, but he really understands its necessity.
Yeah.
And this is mirrored in the gameplay as it progresses. As the Mongols commit more atrocities, as Jin does his best to fight them, he realizes he can't be a samurai about this anymore.
No.
And there are other forces within the game that are being like, what are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? This is not what we do. Bearing in mind the whole point of the Samurai Code is it would be better to die than to be dishonorable. It would be better to die in battle because your foe stabbed you while you weren't looking than to do that to them. It is everything to them. I can't stress it enough. The game certainly can't stress it enough. And this, it's a good fusion of gameplay and narrative to show Jin's initial hesitance, finally his acceptance, and then his proficiency, because it turns out he's actually very fucking good at it. He just didn't want to do it. And not only is he good at it, but as he becomes more comfortable in the role, he himself starts thinking up more ways to utilize dishonorable tactics, because he understands the necessity. And without spoiling the entire game, because believe it or not, what I've just described to you in about like 20 minutes is a very mild part of the game's overall structure.
Yeah.
It's omnipresent, but it's not the main focus.
No, it's just nice details to build up the world and the characters.
Exactly, and it does a lot for Jin as a character, because it gives him progression, it gives him an arc.
Yeah.
And it gives the rest of the characters in the cast, in the whole thing, a platform with which to interact with Jin. You learn more about them based on how they feel about what Jin is doing.
Yeah.
And it all informs itself. I will always talk about how amazing Tsushima is, because I fucking love it. I don't think it should have been Game of the Year, maybe. I've said this to you like 5 times, but I'm saying it now for the purpose of the camera. I don't necessarily think it should have been Game of the Year, maybe. I'm of two minds. I don't know about that, but I fucking love Tsushima.
Yeah.
I think it's a massive triumph of a game. It's not perfect. I will not sit here and say it's perfect.
No.
But it's very good.
Yeah. I don't think you can ask for much more of that. When a game sets out with a clear story in mind, and it works to fulfill that story for everything else it does, you end up with a solid, competent game that does everything well. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to do stuff well in service of itself.
It has a thing it wants to do, and it does it.
It's not looking to bloat it and add stuff inconsequential.
I feel like I know where we're going.
No, I'm not going to Cyberpunk. But Cyberpunk is a good example of
It is.
where you get feature bloat and that does a disservice to the story. But bringing it back to Cyberpunk as an example, because it's fresh in my mind, you have opportunities to increase your street rep. You are established very early on to be someone who works on the opposite side of the law. You steal, you extort, you do odd jobs for fixers which aren't legal, and yet one of the main ways for you to increase your street rep with these people is to do side jobs for the police.
That
You go to these like muggings. You go to these street fights and you stop them for the police. You find evidence which goes to the police, and that increases your street rep. And then context of your character and how you behave, and how you behave with police officers in the game, where you're worried about talking to them because you don't want to be seen as a rat.
Which you are.
It doesn't make sense.
I think that definitely counts as narrative dissonance. Like,
And
that
so-
is a big disconnect.
Yeah, and so when you end up, it's fine to do bloat when it works with the story, but when you're doing something disconnected from the story for the sake of adding in stuff to do, then you end up making it difficult to really understand what you're doing.
It's like, for a better example of... Not a better example, sorry. For an example of what you just said, but done right, like, you can still keep those kind of jobs in, to an extent. I would say GTA San Andreas was a great example, because Carl did jobs for the police because the police could have fucked him if he didn't.
Yeah, and it weren't even the jobs you do for the police in
Were
San
illegal.
Andreas are not jobs that the police could do.
No.
They are jobs that they want you to do for them because they are dirty.
Yeah.
In terms of a game that I think does it well that's recent, I'd say Valhalla, because a lot of the bloat in Valhalla to pad out the story is done in service of the character, because you and in service of the world. Like, you find Roman artifacts in all these ruins, which serves to make you explore the world and get you to appreciate the world they've crafted, while also giving opportunities for you to, because you've got a character in your settlement that's a Roman nerd, basically, that's changed his name to Octavius or something.
Excellent.
When his real name is something like Jimmy.
Jimmy the Octavius.
And you've got stuff that serves to drive home that Aloy isn't Catholic. She is not Aloy. Why did I say Aloy? That's Horizon Zero Dawn.
I was thinking I wasn't going to say anything, but I was like,
Fucking hell.
did they throw in a reference?
No, Eivor.
Eivor.
Close, but not close enough. Like, she is a pagan. She believes in the Norse pantheon, and so she'll go to these offering stones that have been put there by the Norse that have come before her, so she can offer sacrifices to the gods. She can take mushrooms, which gives her a psychedelic trip, which she believes brings her closer to the gods. So they're all done in service of building out the world and the characters that make sense.
Yeah.
I just fucking love Valhalla.
I think we're both sat here currently. I think it's like on one side is, oh, I love fucking I fucking love Tsushima, and then you're like, I fucking love Valhalla. And we're both just like, yeah.
When you've got an open world that knows it can't make you explore every part of the world, because it will just have too much stuff to do and it will be too intimidating. But when it's got just enough that it makes you go from point A to point B, and you can make the choice of, do I go along the main road, or do I go off the beaten path and explore this empty area of the map where I haven't been before? There might not be anything important there, but there's still enough there to make it worthwhile, because the game's gorgeous. You get to see all these overgrown forests that we don't really have anymore in England.
No.
And you get to see all these Roman ruins that we don't have anymore, really, because they've all got knocked down.
Yeah.
Through all the medieval times, through wars and everything.
Yeah, and just archaeologists who are like, well, this is my ticket to fame.
Yes.
Dope.
And it's just interesting, in a way that I hadn't thought about since we started this conversation, that Valhalla actually does it surprisingly well in the Ubisoft formula, because it's nothing new for Ubisoft to have these points of interest around the map which you can go to but don't really do anything for the story, but they do.
Yeah.
They do enough to get you to understand Eivor more, because she, whoever you choose to go with, makes comments on these times. Like, you get to see cursed objects where people are praying or making sacrifices to taint the land.
Yeah.
Ivor goes out of her way to clear these things because you believe it's the right thing to do because it doesn't look natural, and Ivor backs it up because it goes against her beliefs.
Yeah, it feeds into each other.
It feeds into each other, and you get more complete character. And when I think that's what more games need to do. If they're going to blow out and try and pad the runtime, they need to make sure that that padding is in service of something other than just padding the runtime.
I think that is 100% what they need to do. I think it's 100% what Cyberpunk didn't do.
Yeah.
I think if you like, all games need a bit of padding, I think, especially nowadays when games have to be so fucking big that you just need to have enough there that your audience plays it for a significant amount of time. I think more work now needs to be put into making that padding worthwhile.
Yeah.
I think that is crucial.
Because we're not going to escape padding, because all games need to... They work as hard as they can to try and justify the price you pay for the game.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're paying 50, 60 quid for a game, and it's like a 20-hour experience, unless it's balls to the walls, nuts and fantastic...
With replay value,
you're not going to want to pay that much for it. You're not going to buy it on release day. You're going to wait until it goes on sale for 50, 60% off.
Which is really not conducive to them making a profit off of its development.
Yeah.
And considering we had games that were like 60 to 80 hours long more than 10 years ago. And the scale has only gotten bigger, perhaps not the overall playtime, but scale has gotten bigger, which requires more work for less amount of playtime than it would back then. So padding is entirely necessary.
Yeah, I think...
It's kind of the beauty of indie games, though, because they don't need padding.
They don't need padding, and when they do padding, it's like going to Hades, a game which I'm absolutely in love with at the minute.
I haven't played it.
It is a very short game. If you get good at it, you can complete a run and complete in quotations the game in 20 minutes. But there's so much there in terms of characters where they always have something new to say. They have relationships with each other which you can influence and you can mend, and they're just so fucking likeable. Even the gods, which are mainly just up themselves,
of course,
because they're a pantheon of deities and they think everyone else is beneath them, but they still have these semblances of humanity where you like them.
Yeah. I'd say it's credit to the old Greek pantheons where they were never, ever, ever described as being faultless beings.
No, they were always human.
Yeah, they were as flawed as their subjects.
Creations.
As their creations, yeah.
And going back to Hades, it just serves the story so well, because you complete the game in 20 minutes, but then you're not getting the story. Not in full, you're getting the cliff notes.
Oh, yeah.
And it just works so well, because there's no like side quests or anything like that. There's goals you can achieve which gives you bonus resources, but that's just nothing to do with the story. That's
gameplay for
challenges
gameplay.
And incentives to change different weapons and go for different gods. But you have to go through it so much and talk to these characters so many times to get the whole narrative. And even everyone has their own little arcs that you can interfere with. It just serves so well with so little there in terms of gameplay. Like, once you've played through it once, it's not going to be massively different. You can make it subtly different, but not massively. So once you get through it, that's it. But there's so much there to keep you coming back for more, because you get so in love with these characters and these stories that you just want to come back. And that's something that I think more games need to do, where you connect to these characters, and instead of having to come back to collect the next thing, sometimes it's nicer just to want to come back because you like the characters so much.
As we discuss it now, it feels really obvious, but I would have not thought of it before we had this conversation. But using narrative as padding / replay value, there could really be something there. It's already, literally, as you say, it's been done in Hades.
But that's what side quests should be.
Yeah, actually, you're right.
Side quests shouldn't... They can be those self-contained stories with characters you'll never see again, because you can do that well, in which that serves to further your character. Maybe they're put into a situation they don't agree with, or a situation they don't understand, and they've got to work their way through it as a fish out of water, and it makes them grow. But it can also just be, we're here, this is the main thing we've got to do, but I've got these odd jobs that need doing as well, and you get to know the characters more from doing those. Or you don't even need jobs, just more opportunities to talk to characters. Because that seems to be going away a bit in recent games I've played, where you have 3-4 dialogue options, and then that character's done.
Yeah.
And you don't come back to them. Doesn't matter how much you like them. Once you're done with those dialogue options, they've got nothing more to add. And you've got all of these, like, hundreds of characters that are like that, when you could have done with 10, 12 characters.
And my
really
an issue I have as well is the dialogue with a lot of those characters, when they have a lot of those kind of things, isn't actually dialogue. It's tell me about.
It's just exposition.
Yeah, it is a very, very lazy form of world building.
It's just, hi, my name's Frank, and I run a bakery.
Tell me about the bakery. Tell me about the rats in your cellar. Tell me about my sweaty ball sack. And it's not interesting.
Yeah.
It forces you to seek out that uninteresting information as well.
Yeah.
Which is especially insulting.
It's like, I really like this character. I want to know more about them. I can't talk to them to find out more. I'm going to raid their house for notes.
Code Vein actually does this quite well. Because a couple months ago or so, my girlfriend brought Code Vein round, and we played it for a little bit. And my first impressions of it were quite kind of negative. Because I was like,
big old anime titties.
It's just fucking fan service anime Dark Souls that doesn't play as well as Dark Souls.
It's right there.
I have a copy now because my girlfriend bought it for me. Because I actually gave it another try, and I was like, you know, it's pretty good.
It's got redeeming features, yeah.
And you talk to the characters, and you're like, you know what? These characters initially appear to be stereotypes, but actually have personalities.
Talking about Code Vein, that is something I've really enjoyed about that game, and that skill progression is tied to finding out more about the characters.
That is literally what I was going to bring up, is that you find out more about the characters in a very direct way, by literally experiencing parts of their lives.
Yes, and then that serves to aid your character progression, because your skills are tied to how much you know these characters, because you're embodying them to get their skills.
You're encouraged to do it because you gain some incredibly powerful abilities by doing this.
And that's such an interesting way of doing it, and mixing game narrative with progression as well, because you don't have to talk to them.
Nope.
You're kind of penalised for not doing it, but you can kind of wing it.
If you're only interested in beating the game, then you could totally do it without them. You know, you just have a partner with you, just go through, smash it, done, bing bang bong. But if the story matters to you, then you would need to talk to them. But if the story matters to you, you would want to anyway.
Yeah.
It sort of fills into itself. You want to know more about these characters if you want to know more about these characters.
Yeah.
And you can do that if you want to.
Even if you're not interested in finding out more about those characters initially, by the end of it you should be, because you're not forced to, but you're heavily pushed to increase your strength, and then you find out more of them as a result, and then it kind of melds together, and you want to know more about them, and you want to get stronger, and then that's a direct link to wanting to do both.
Not to mention, it's a long-ass adventure. Not the longest game I've ever played, but it's pretty long, and you'll be around these characters a lot. If you have a partner, you'll definitely have a character around you a lot. If there is any chance that you as an individual will like these characters, it will happen by the end of the game. If you don't, you're in for a miserable time.
Yeah.
Because it's just nothing but that and the power of friendship. But I think it took some risks in that respect, because if you don't like those characters, you're not gonna have a good time. But if you do like those characters, there is pretty much anything you want in there.
Yeah.
Even fan service.
Lots of fan service.
Although I personally, one of my favourite aspects of that game was giving the characters gifts. Because they provide little tidbits about who they are as people. Nothing too blunt, nothing too forced. They're just like, I love this food.
Yeah.
I used to have it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Very small, very quick, very basic. Provide some details. Like Jack, for fuck's sake. Jack, who looks like every edgelord anti-hero in any anime ever. And you go up to him and give him an antique coin. He's like, I fucking love these. I used to collect them. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Do you remember the cutscene where the rock music was playing and we were fighting? Fucking love that scene.
It's just, there's so few games that actually do that, thinking about it. Gifting in games is such a JRPG trope.
Very Japanese.
That it doesn't, like Japan, I don't know why I said that so
Japan.
weirdly. Japan. Japanese games have this obsession with finding out the little details. Like, I don't know why, I haven't looked into it to understand why this is so important, but things like blood type, I don't understand why that's such a big part of it, but it is, and it's interesting just to get that little bit of detail that's like, this is so inconsequential, but
apparently it's a big deal.
But it's more information.
I can't remember where I heard this, or if this is even specifically what I heard, or if my brain has generated some bullshit information based on nothing. But I believe, and this could be incredibly incorrect, so I'm just really throwing out that disclaimer to begin with. But apparently, blood types in Japan are treated like horoscopes.
I've got a feeling I've heard that too.
Then I might not be crazy. I might be wrong, but I might not be crazy.
We might both be very wrong.
We could just both be wrong.
That makes sense.
I think it's treated in the sense that your blood type kind of dictates what your personality is like. In that same way that horoscopes are complete bullshit.
Yeah.
You know. But that's... I can't remember where I heard that. I don't know why my brain was like... I'm pretty sure it's a fact.
Yeah. But it kind of makes sense. And it's just that sort of thing where... if you look into that sort of thing, I'm sure that could lead into a lot of more information about that character just from that very simple thing, which if you get the context, you'll be able to gain more of an insight into that character.
Yeah.
It's a very, I suppose it's a very on-the-nose thing. It would be like saying, Cloud's Pisces.
I didn't know my dog was a Pisces.
And then judging the character based on that, but it's...
He's a fucking Pisces.
It's more information that you just don't get. So many characters are just one done onto the next one.
Oh yeah.
And that's such a disservice to the story.
As a good example, Yakumo is introduced in Code Vein as kind of being like kind of hothead guy, and he doesn't trust you. 20 minutes in, he's like, we should be friends. And like another 20 minutes in, he's like, we're best friends. Yeah. He's clearly a guy who forms connections very quickly. He's a very friendly person despite how that initial interaction plays off. And he is a bit of a hothead, but also has intelligent aspects to him. So what I like is that the game, don't get me wrong, there are still some stereotypes going on.
Of course there is.
But the game goes to efforts to give characters fleshed out personalities.
Yeah.
Louis initially appears to be quite friendly, but the more the game goes on, the more you're like, dude doesn't talk much. Or talk to me much, or anyone specific. He mostly talks to himself and someone else shows up and is like, what the fuck are you mumbling about?
Yeah.
You just sort of start to notice these things about all the different characters, and it's just nice. And perhaps I'm setting the bar pretty low because of my expectations, which were low.
Yeah, but it's hard not to set the bar low where so many games don't even do that as like bare minimum.
I think it's why Persona, because we're looking at your fucking Persona theme on the screen right now. I think it's why Persona does so well.
Persona does so well because it's such a small ensemble cast, and they're all given their moment to shine, and their moments for you to know them and get to know their personalities, their hopes, their dreams, what they want to do in the future.
They're also given moments to fail and fuck up.
Yeah, like Ryuji.
Like, I knew you can say Ryuji, and it's true.
Is my fucking best boy. I love him to pieces, but at the same time, he is a fucking knob halfway through the game.
To be fair, Arn, not to the same degree, but Arn does fuck up to a similar level.
Yeah.
Like, she's not as bad as Ryuji at that point, but I love Arn as well. Like, Arn's a good character. I like Arn. I wish her fucking Phantom Thieves costume was different, but whatever.
Yeah.
But she's a good character. She fucks up as well. Like, to a point, she's roughly as stupid about keeping it a secret as Ryuji is.
Yeah.
Her motives also change.
Yeah.
And which character actually stays true? There is a character who like stays true to it, or maybe several. But I can't remember who it is. Joker doesn't count because that's your choice.
I want to say Makoto kind of stays true.
I feel like Makoto is the one who keeps reminding everyone, and they keep ignoring her.
I feel like maybe Futaba to an extent as well.
Perhaps, but Futaba's motives weren't really in line with the gang, to be honest.
No,
and she openly states it.
Futaba's out to find out what happened to her mother.
And to get revenge.
And to get revenge. The gang are out to try and make a difference at the start, and then
I think Yusuke stays on board. I think he does.
I've got a funny feeling he delves into it slightly.
Or at the very least, he's the first person to be like, we fucked up.
Yeah. But Yusuke is such a...
brilliant character.
Yusuke is just Yusuke.
He's such a fantastic Yusuke.
He's just so...
He's such a Yusuke.
That I don't know how much of it actually comes into his mind about what he's doing.
The most bizarre description I ever heard for Yusuke came from a Tumblr post somewhere. Don't know where, don't know how, and it's a weird statement. Was in regards to him, they said, "Is Yusuke gay or is he just European?" I was like, wait, what does that mean? In what respect? And is this being implied as some kind of negative? I'm confused on like multiple levels. I love Yusuke so much.
I don't know if I would say he's outrightly portrayed as gay, because he does have a thing with the female cast in Yukatas.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much of that is like an attraction
or art
to them physically, or an attraction to how they just aesthetically look in regards to his eyes. Well, I do think they portray him...
They portray him as effeminate, and Japan's not very good at portraying effeminate without being outright gay.
Yeah, they do have their issues. It doesn't come across as bad, I think, as in other...
No, he's a well-made character.
And I don't think they ever really have to explain it. He's just Yusuke.
Yeah, and I think, like, if you really wanted to look into that, then I would assume he's probably, like, asexual or something. Like, he doesn't think about that shit. That's not really what's in his head.
Yeah, he's
an artist. He makes art.
Focused on what he wants to achieve, and everything around that kind of gets blurred.
Literally, the characters talk about how he marches to the beat of his own drum. There's nothing else to him but art, really. That and reforming society, which becomes more interesting to him through the course of the story.
After his castle.
But that's because society is ugly and not aesthetic.
Yes.
So it all ties back.
Yes, and it's beautiful.
Fucking love that guy. Also, he gets a katana and an assault rifle, so he just lucked out on the fucking weapon drawer when Joker got a pistol and a knife.
Yeah, but
which is cooler.
Joker makes that shit work.
Yeah, it's Joker, man. Fucking Joker can make anything work. You could give him a fucking dog turd on a stick and he'll make it happen.
He'll make it look cool.
Amazing, Joker.
Just sticking with Persona for a bit.
Of course.
I just love how much character they give Joker without really giving him that much that he does.
I agree, it's strange.
He's got such a strong character where he wants to elicit change, and he also enjoys it, because he has all of those very like almost psychotic looks at times where he's clearly enjoying the fight and the battle and the struggle.
Oh yeah.
More than I think he should do.
Probably. He's a bit like the game goes to pains at the start where everyone around you has labelled you at best as a miscreant, at worst as a violent thug.
Yeah.
Like, even though you're a fucking lanky, skinny dude with glasses.
Yeah.
So no one looks at me and thinks, well, maybe they do. They just don't tell me. Anyway, the point is, everyone at the start of the game is like, Joker's that, or whatever you name your character, fucking horrible, terrifying thug. He carries a knife. If you look at him, he might punch you. Blah 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 blah. And the whole and like in the normal world, Joker is a very very passive person, very mild, very reserved.
Goes along with anything anyone tells him.
Goes along with exactly. Doesn't say much. Starts to do more as the game progresses because he's sort of you know, life is pushing him forward. When it comes to the other world,
real world persona and his other world persona are becoming intermixed.
it's true. By the end of the game, that's actually kind of what's going on, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, as he goes into the other world and he puts on the mask, which is the game's code for actually taking off the mask,
Yeah.
his true self becomes revealed. He is a daredevil. He enjoys it more than he would admit.
Yeah.
You can see it easily. Like,
Yeah.
from the first moment his persona reveals itself to the casino heist, when he fucking does pirouettes out the window and he's smirking to himself the whole time because he fucking loves it.
Yeah.
You can tell, and like, obviously the other characters have their own versions of this kind of thing, but none of them enjoy it quite like Joker does.
No.
To them, it's either a necessity, or it's empowering, or they feel good that they're doing the right thing. Joker is a thief.
And he enjoys it.
And he loves doing it. And he keeps doing it.
Yeah.
He keeps stealing. Because he loves doing it.
Yeah. I just fucking love Persona, man.
I fucking love Persona. Persona 5, like, I played Persona 3, and that was my first introduction to Persona, and I fucking adored it.
Yeah.
And I think, with no spoilers given, the way Persona 3 handles its final encounter and the lead up to it is very well done.
Yeah.
Very well done. And in fact, the music used in the final encounter of Persona 3 is dope. It's so fucking good. And to be honest, the music used in the Out of Birth fight is kind of shit. But Persona 5, in my humble opinion, is the best Persona game.
Yeah, I think
It's my
people
favourite. People will fight
I
that
feel
because
like
people love
would
Persona 4.
fight that because I think it's a series where it depends where you jumped on.
Yeah.
I feel like your first experience with Persona is always going to have a special place for you.
And 3 does.
And that's always going to affect it. As a game, I can't comment in comparison to the series because I've only played Persona 4 and Persona 5. Persona 4 is a very lovely story, very dark story with people actually being murdered and you're investigating the murder rather than trying to stop it at some points. But it's just the quality of life changes because there's set dungeons in Persona 5 with set layouts. It's so much better than Persona 4 where you just have randomly generated floors and you have to go up a set amount of floors with no saves and no refills.
Persona
So-
3 was quite similar.
And it just makes it...
I'm actually going to revise my previous statement. Persona 5 was my favourite Persona game until Persona 5 Royal came out. And now Persona 5 Royal is my favourite Persona game because even more quality of life changes.
Yeah. It's just... I feel like Persona 5 is where Atlas got it. They managed to mesh accessible gameplay that still has the opportunity to turn around and say, lol, nope, you thought this was going to be easy. I'm going to one-shot you in one round and party wipe you and you're going to be sent back to a checkpoint. When did you last save? Oh, it wasn't for the last hour or two. Have fun doing this all again.
And I hear you saying, but I didn't even get a chance to act yet. Well, maybe you should have been better.
Yeah, maybe you should have ambushed.
Maybe you should have picked a Persona with higher agility, you fucking nerd.
Yeah. But Persona 5 is where they nailed down that formula of it's accessible, it's easy to pick up, but it's still got that learning curve where you can get fucked over, but you know why you got fucked over.
I think
It's very rarely bullshit.
it's harsh.
It's harsh, but you understand where you went wrong.
Yeah, like if you get ambushed, I think you are not necessarily asking to be one shot, but you are taking that risk.
Yes.
You should know that you're taking that risk as well. It's also hard to get ambushed as well.
Yeah, it's very... You're doing something wrong if you are being ambushed.
Without doubt.
Because the game makes it so easy for you to ambush everything in existence.
To the point where if you are in cover, if the enemy is standing right next to you, behind the cover with you, looking at you, not only can they not see you, but you can ambush them with a single button press.
And it even has that grace period where if there's two enemies next to each other and you ambush one of them, it despawns the other, so you're not immediately fucked over by the second enemy when you come out the back with the first.
And you can run away.
Yeah.
Like, if they see you, you can literally just fuck off.
Yeah.
And the alert, the overall alert thing will have gone up, and that's always a risk, but just killing some will bring that back down to normal. They'll stop searching for you, you can just ambush them. And in Persona 5 Royal, you get that little rope, grappling hook, just in case you didn't think you had enough easy options to ambush.
Now you can ambush from range.
And gain more bonuses for doing so.
Yeah.
The game does everything it can to allow you to start with an advantage.
Yes.
If you fuck that up,
then...
and I have fucked up, we all make mistakes,
Yeah.
but you have to accept that you fucked up. And the game
Yes.
gives you options for getting out of those situations as well.
It makes it hard. You can still fuck up occasionally because you get complacent and it likes to remind you of your place.
Yeah, you're a thief.
But it's very difficult to consistently mess it up unless you are actively sabotaging yourself.
Or you just don't care.
Yeah. Which I think ties back well into Dark Souls, where, in my opinion, Dark Souls 2, there's a lot of bullshit in Dark Souls 2.
There's a fair bit.
Persona lets you make it as difficult as you like it to be, and you know where you fucked up, you can make changes to make sure you don't fuck up again. Dark Souls is very much like they're hitting you over the head with a baseball bat, and you just gotta sit there and take it until somehow you manage to stop them hitting you.
Eventually you realise the pattern.
Yeah, and even then...
Although, to be fair, the pursuer in Dark Souls 2, the first encounter with the pursuer, I wouldn't necessarily describe as being, really horrible, but it is a cruel-spirited joke.
Yes.
It is a very mean-spirited joke. It's hilarious, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But a very mean-spirited joke.
Yeah.
To set up your new player who just climbed up this thing to deal with an archer who is shooting at them. Why wouldn't you go up there?
To have this boss encounter. Especially since there's Estus shards up there as well, which you need to collect.
And if you fail that fight, the game goes, well, guess you failed it, you'll have to fight him in the proper place later. You don't get to try again, you'll have to find him in his appropriate place.
Yeah.
Which I get really angry about.
Which is still optional, and you can cheese the fuck out of him in his appropriate place with the ballista.
And the beautiful cherry on top of all of this is if you have summoned in help, they can shoot you.
Yeah.
And you will die.
But I feel like in Dark Souls 2, there is bullshit which you can learn and which you can deal with, but at the same time the tools which you have to deal with that is unreliable at best.
Yeah.
Like, the dodge roll is inconsistent in what you avoid.
I hate to disagree with you on this, but I do have to. The iframes are consistent. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It is difficult, especially since... I don't think this is influencing you, but it is an example I can use.
Yeah.
So you came from Sekiro. Sekiro has no iframes. And you know this, of course. You can't just smash circle and get around guys. You knew this. You parried. You did it properly. That game clicked for you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily making you play worse as a result, but...
I feel like...
There's two things, first of all, in Dark Souls 2. One, obviously the very specific timing for iframes. That is a thing, and it's always been a thing. Two, in Dark Souls 2, is auto-tracking overheads, which are the bane of everyone's life, mine included, even now. And as I'm sure you know, the way to beat those is to dodge at the last possible second. Yeah. Now, that is something that sounds great on paper, but when you go to do it, you get slapped a couple of times first.
Yeah, I feel like the inconsistency I have with dodge rolls in Dark Souls 2 is that there are times with wide swings where you've clearly dodged underneath the swing, it's not hit you, it's gone over your head while you're rolling, and yet you still get damaged.
I think I know what you're referring to. Is it by those stone giants in Hyde's Tower by any chance?
It might well be. The more recent example in my head, because it's still fresh and it still irks me, is Smelter Demon.
Yeah.
Because he has the wide swing overhead. And there are times when I was dodging that where I could do it consistently and it was fine. And there was other times where I dodged, got under it, got hit, and then I'm sandwiched by the second hit.
Of course.
By the overhead hit.
There are multiple issues here, so this isn't really going to be a defense of the game, I suppose. But the dodge rolls themselves, the way they work,
Yeah.
are consistent. I will say that much. I get the feeling that you're sort of not quite talking about that specifically anymore. It's more about the attacks, really, by this point.
Like, it feels like the hit collision, would that be the right word for it?
Yeah, I think people can understand that. I think I know what you mean.
A bit dodgy when you can see when Dark Souls itself is lauded with these gifs of like characters dodging the last second by doing an attack where it lowers their character model and they don't get hit because it goes over them. It feels like that's how it should work, and in some situations that's not how it works.
The issue, and I think, like, I'm not a guy in the industry, I don't do any of this kind of work, this has just come from pure observation. The issue I find is that, first of all, dodge rolls, they do their thing, blah, 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 whatever, iframes, we've been over it.
Yeah.
And there is some serious bullshit when it comes to dodge rolls, where you literally jump through a guy's sword, the sword literally hits you, and you jump through it and you're fine.
Yeah.
That has not hit you, because of the iframes. Unfortunately, due to the way the system works, there seems to be some reverse bullshit, where a blade, having been swung, and your arm is out, having finished the swing, or their arm, to attack you, the blade is out, they've swung. But because you dodged, and it sounds like I'm blaming the dodger, I'm not.
Yeah.
Because you, according to them, dodged slightly too early, that swing sort of, as the arm is resting, it still counts as a swing.
Yeah.
So you still take the hit, because as far as the game is concerned, it is just finishing its swing. The entire animation is an attack swing, and you got clipped by it because it scraped the back of your heel. Dark Souls is fair because it does bullshit in everyone's favour.
Yeah.
Everyone is safe and no one is safe.
I guess I can see that, yeah. Some of the swing arcs on weapons are a bit bullshit.
Is it well designed? Yes and no.
Yeah, it has its flaws. I guess, going back to Sekiro, I am spoiled by how they did those attacks, where there was options to dodge them, where you could jump above the swing, you could roll past the swing, you could dodge into the swing if it was a thrust, which I fucking love. That
stomp is so good. I wish it was in Tsushima.
It's just, I don't know, just going back and playing Dark Souls, I just see Sekiro as every idea they had for Dark Souls refined and implemented better. In a different way. I can see why people would prefer Dark Souls, because it's a much more slower, methodical approach.
The funny thing is we're much like the cycle of rebirth. We have kind of come full circle here.
We have, yeah.
And thinking about it, like, I've got to be honest, I did not get along with Sekiro. I just didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm inclined to agree with you, because my opinion of Dark Souls has like I said at the very start of this, has kind of dwindled over the years. It's dampened. It's gone soggy, frankly. Because, like, I still believe the Dark Souls games are great. I still believe they're well designed.
I'm not
throwing out all the disclaimer statements, you know how it is, and you feel the same way as you have expressed. But there's something about them that just doesn't sit with me anymore, and something like Sekiro feels more worthy of that level of praise.
I feel like Dark Souls is still a good game, but I feel like it's not aged well in comparison to the other stuff FromSoft has produced.
I think their game design is becoming archaic.
Yes.
Good, it's well designed gameplay. It's outdated in its thought process and its execution in some strange way. It's starting to feel old.
I think after a while, since Souls-like has become such an ingrained genre that spawned so many spin-offs of varying degrees of competence. It starts to almost become, what's the word for it?
Stale?
Stale. I was going to say tacky. Stale works better.
Now that you mention it, the pure explosion of Souls-likes might be why it feels old.
Yeah, because there's so many... in my opinion, I don't think you can get a more refined combat than Sekiro.
Yeah.
It has its flaws. It is very samey with the one weapon. It does have its means of expanding your repertoire of abilities, but it is very samey. You don't have that freedom of expression that you have in the Souls series, which almost works to its detriment in that none of them are overly fleshed out.
Yeah, the big issue with Souls is the fact that there are so many weapons, but do you know what weapons people tend to use?
All the same ones.
Or like the sword, normal sword, or the great sword, or, you know, like a spear. Meanwhile, there is literally, in Dark Souls 2, giant twin blades like Darth Maul's fucking lightsaber, but with swords. Do you know how many people use them? PvP trolls, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's not many
I know
people.
Exactly the spear you're thinking of, because it's the one that's unbreakable once you break off the giant stone head.
Oh yeah, there's that as
spear.
well. I forgot about that as well. I was talking about something different, but that's also there as well.
Which
yes,
I feel drags the game down.
there is a
because-
shield in Dark Souls 2 that has a crossbow fitted into it. Do you know how many
Yeah.
people use that weapon? None.
That's a soul weapon as well.
That's a soul weapon.
I feel like with Souls, when you've got that sheer volume of weapons, balance is going to be an issue.
It's even more an issue when you consider that there are cool and interesting weapons, and some of them are actually really fucking good. Unlike the twin blades, I really tried.
I don't know, Santia's spear, going back to that weapon, is a weapon that I had to force myself not to use because it felt cheesy, because it has such high base damage and no scaling, so you can roar it without losing anything, and it's unbreakable, and it staggers everything pretty much.
Goddamn.
So you can hit something once, and one press of R1 is like 3 separate attacks which all individually stagger.
Oh boy.
So then it's like you're cheesing the game because nothing can react unless they hit you first.
One of my biggest issues with this is, like, as I was saying, they have all these interesting weapons, but
They're
you
not-
find these interesting weapons, I'd say you start finding properly interesting ones, anytime between 30% to 99% through the game. And by this point, you have a sword, which is plus 5 to plus 7 to plus 10, depending on where you are, with an enchantment, and you've spec'd your stats into using it. Why the fuck would you use anything else?
Yeah.
It's dominant strategy.
I noticed this while playing through the DLC for Dark Souls 2, in that they hand you easily found weapons on a platter of like, here's a spear plus 7. Try using this. Here's a sword plus 7. Try using this.
Please use something else, because
And
we
it's
realise
just-
the problem.
You've got no incentive to use them because they're so boring.
And also, when you find a new weapon, even if you are committed to using all of the finite upgrading materials
Yeah.
to upgrade them, you have to learn a new moveset. Granted, they're not hugely different, but there's still differences in reach and speed and power and staggering, and
Yeah.
you have to really commit if you are going to do that, and if you're
And-
not, there's no point.
The biggest detriment as well is that the most unique weapons are the ones gated behind Twinkling Titanite and Fossilized Dragonbone.
Which are very finite.
Very finite, they're not available from a vendor in infinite numbers, not like all the Titanite slabs. And so, if you want to use a new weapon that requires those upgrade materials, you almost feel like you can't, because you can't max it unless you make the game extra hard for yourself by using a bonfire aesthetic where you can find the fossilized dragon bone.
Not to
or a
mention,
twinkling titanite.
Not to mention as well, if you want boss weapons, there are 2 different characters that you need to make some kind of acquaintance with in order to get to them. One is hidden at the top of a tower, behind something that requires a finite item to get to. The
Yeah.
other one is unlocked by a key found somewhere. I can't remember right now where that key is found, and the character themselves is in a hole, in a ground that you may stumble upon, but you might not, and then they say,
Yeah.
hey, come to my house, and you're like, where? And they're like, bye!
That's the bird lady.
That's
And that
Ornifex.
is so obtuse that I had to Google where to find it, because I was like, there's got to be Ornifex, that's her name.
Yeah.
You've got to go to this one area, use the fragrant fragment of yore to unseal this enemy, It's completely out of the way with no indication of what he's there for or what you'll get from him.
So you need one of those for each of the boss weapon vendors. Because
Yeah.
you need one for Strayed as well.
Then you need to unfreeze Strayed himself. And then you go down this hole, fight these enemies, unlock this door. Then, like you said, there's the woman, the bird lady. And then you've got to find where she is. And she's in another area, which in itself is annoying. Because
Really
you've
annoying.
got to fight mobs every single time you want to get to her.
Who fire homing spells.
Homing spells, which thankfully fizzle out when you're close enough to talk to the woman.
Thank
But
God.
you've also got the spiders that chase you into the house, where you can actually aggro her. Because
yeah.
if your swing is too wide, you'll hit her with the spiders.
Yep.
And so it makes this difficult.
And mentioning that, maybe we should go back to Strayed. Strayed is in a room filled, almost literally filled, with exploding enemies.
Thankfully, they don't aggro.
That's good.
Unless you get close to them, they don't aggro. So you can bonfire in. Here's the most easy NPC to get access to, because he's right next to a bonfire. You run out of the cage doors, talk to him, no one aggroes you, you out, bonfire away.
I gotta admit, I've never taken that risk. I always kill them because I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want, because they do a lot of damage as well. Those guys hit hard when they
They do.
explode. So I was like, I ain't taking the risk. I ain't fucking gaining a level of hollowing because of horrible enemy placement, which brings me to the Salt Fort as well. We can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, just both boss vendors not only being difficult to get to and requiring. Like, I don't mind that there's a challenge. I don't mind that they're hard to get to because they reward you with something really cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I'd say Strayed himself isn't difficult to find,
No.
because he's right in front of the bonfire where you travel to get to him. So you might not want to use it to get him free, but you want to get him free so you can get to the bonfire,
And he's a lucky
which
accident.
runs into the risk of you're conditioned through the game that when you unfreeze a statue, 99% of the time, there are, I think, only two exceptions that I can think of, Strayed and the Pyromancer. The Pyromancer is explicitly stated not to be an enemy. There's no indication of that as Strayed unless you've got some helpful messages from other players saying don't attack. So there's a very real chance that you'll unfreeze him and then,
Try and
out
kill
of
him.
habit, kill him.
It's interesting because in the original game there were significantly less statues and significantly less branches of yore. So Strayed is likely to be the first one you encounter,
Yeah.
which means you're not either her or that Pyromancer that you mentioned. So when you unfreeze either of them, you're not inclined to attack them because you haven't encountered one before.
Yeah.
So, and they look like people. So
Yeah.
you're like, they'll probably talk. If they attack me, whatever. But that leads to the problem where later on in the game, there are those lion warriors in the forest. And then you find a frozen lion warrior and you're like, oh, it's a friendly one. And he takes your fucking head off.
Yeah, because they hit hard.
They hit very hard. Very hard.
And it's just, I don't know, it just, going back to the weapon variety as well, yeah, the main differential between not just their stats, the main differential between what weapon you want to use is how they look. And you run into this disconnect where you've got this really cool weapon, but it's not good.
No.
And you feel you want to use it, using it will make it more difficult for yourself in the long run. And I feel like that does the game a disservice, because it's trying to get you to use these other weapons, but at the same time, it's maybe not actively trying to get you to use the same weapon, but it's heavily nudging you in that direction.
I remember a couple months ago, maybe start of the year, around that time, I made a fucking cleric faith build on Dark Souls 2, which everyone who's watching right now would be laughing, because fucking clerics in Dark Souls 2 were nerfed to oblivion. They are worthless, and they still are. They haven't even fixed that. They're still just worthless. It's been like 8 years. But I made this cleric because I wanted to go get Velstat's hammer. And I wanted to have my big fuck-off paladin hammer. I wasn't making a cleric, I was making a paladin.
Yeah.
That was my difference. And you fight Velstat very late in the game. So I went through the entire game, and I had weapons. I had good ones. Dragon Slayer's lightning axe, which is great for faith builds because of the lightning damage. I had lots of good weapons. Go on, so on and so forth. Finally get there. Velstart isn't the hardest boss in the game, but he's not exactly a pushover.
No.
So that was a fight. Took him down. Got the soul. Went through all the bullshit we talked about with Ornifex, because Jesus Christ. Got the weapon. Got the fucking upgrade materials to keep it relevant, because it is not created relevant no matter what your scaling is. You need to buff it up. Started using the weapon. It sucks. It's shit. And I spent the whole fucking game
working towards that end.
And it sucks. I've stopped playing. That save file, I've stopped playing it. Because, oh my god.
I just hope that if they go back to doing a Dark Souls-like game, in that sort of, not setting, but gameplay-wise, instead of having movesets tied to individual weapons, have movesets tied to weapon types, and have the upgrade tree from Sekiro.
The funny thing is, that, like, not like the thing with Sekiro, yes, absolutely, but weapons kind of are defined by their weapon types. Not universally, but for the most part. I think, honestly, it's going to be weird, because I'm completely reversing what you just said.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to give us so many fucking weapons, put some effort into their movesets. I want a great hammer to feel different from a tree branch.
Yeah. I feel like that would tie in well with, because in the Sekiro skill tree, you've got different options for different ways of using your sword, which feel unique and different.
Why don't we reward players for using a weapon more often?
Exactly, which is why, because you've got the you can have the souls for your stats, and then you have proficiency in weapons. And proficiency, you build up a bar, you get a point, invest it in something.
Yeah, get a move, or
I loathe to say it, but get like a damage modifier.
I was hesitant to say it, but yeah, I can't think of anything better right now.
But
we're just workshopping it.
Even just combos on their own, just
new moves
which you could switch out and customize. Like Neo does it fantastically well.
It does.
In which every weapon has a unique skill tree with loads of different ways you can customize and swap out combos to make each weapon its own, where yes, there are weapons that look cool, but their look is not tied explicitly to how much you can use them.
Not to mention stances.
Yes, stances are so fucking good.
Allowing for not wildly different, but significantly different ways
of
to
using those weapons.
Use the same weapon.
Like the I'm gonna butcher it, but the Kusaragama,
Probably.
the sickle and ball.
Oh yeah.
The different stances affect the distance you have between your enemy. Mid stance is wide sweeping swings. Low stance is fast, quick actions up close. Long stance is these long throws of the ball and follows up with the chain to really emphasise the different play styles, and that works really well. And I just hope that when they make a return, be it with Elden Ring, if that's the direction they're going down, whether it's more of Dark Souls style of combat, they look at all these different games that have taken inspiration from them, and in turn takes inspiration from all the different ways that they've innovated on their core design strategy. Because there are so many Souls-like games, and not all of them are good, but all of them in some way do something better or more interesting than the original.
There is a comparison I think can be made here, and of all things, it's to Amnesia, because that new Amnesia game came out recently. Now, you want to go, this is relevant to what we were talking about, like, I'm not just bringing this up out of the blue. However many years ago, roughly 10, give or take, Amnesia the Dark Descent came out.
Yeah.
And this game revolutionized horror at the time.
Yeah.
It did everything. People looked at that and were like, that's a fucking horror game.
Yeah.
That's how it's done. And since then, practically every horror game that's come out, with exceptions, but practically every horror game has tried to emulate Amnesia in some form.
Yeah.
In some way, to draw inspiration from it somehow.
Yeah.
Because it was that fucking good. And you know what? I've played it myself, and it's pretty fucking scary.
Yeah.
Not too scary. It's not scary enough to make you go, fuck this, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
But it's enough to put you on edge. It's good. I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
New Amnesia came out recently. And bearing in mind, I'm drawing what I'm about to say from Yatu Croshaw, because I haven't played it myself, because money, and I'm bad with horror games.
Yeah.
He played it, and he was like, they haven't really moved in 10 years, have they? This is just another... Okay, Machine for Pigs came out. Gee, I almost forgot, because everyone forgot about that game.
Yeah.
But he's like, they really haven't moved, have they? They basically revolutionized the horror genre, but the problem is everyone else is now doing what they did.
Better.
They're still doing what they did.
Yeah.
And people are now doing it better. People are innovating on it and moving forward with it. And the same has happened, to bring us back to our initial point,
To Dark Souls.
Dark Souls has changed things up a bit from game to game. Dark Souls 3 changes more than the other two did. It's not enough.
No.
It's not nearly it. Sekiro was enough of a change.
Yeah.
That was a big shake-up.
Even Bloodborne.
Bloodborne was enough of a change. That was a big shake-up.
It's,
Not as much as Sekiro,
No.
but it was a change.
no. It was still that
Fucking love Bloodborne.
less... It was not quite as fast-paced as Sekiro, but it was a lot more fast-paced than Dark Souls.
Oh, yeah.
And that whole reward you for being aggressive rather than defensive with the health regen.
And taking away your fucking shield.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And I had a lot more fun with the rolling in Bloodborne. I feel like it was more forgiving in Bloodborne because it had to be.
I liked the fucking anime dashes.
Yeah.
They're great. They feel cool and they work.
I don't know what to expect from Elden Ring going into it. I just hope they don't fall back into old steps. I want more of Sekiro. I think that's my bottom line because Sekiro is up there as one of my favourite games.
At this current point, we have, and by we, I mean you and I and everyone else in the world who doesn't work at FromSoftware, have no idea where Elden Ring's going to be.
There is what, like a 5-second teaser trailer.
And even the name without context means nothing.
Yeah. The most we know about what it's going to be like is that George R.R. Martin is attached to write the story.
I'm worried about the fact that the word ring is in the fucking title because I think we're going back into a rebirth story.
Yeah.
But that is pure speculation. Can't honestly sit here and try and present that as a fact.
The only thing I'm hopeful for in terms of story is that it won't be as obtuse because they're not gonna bring on George R.R. Martin, widely celebrated and lauded author, to write a piecemeal story fed to you in little bits.
I agree with you, however...
There's still the opportunity for that to happen.
George also likes fucking with his audience, so I could see him agreeing to that. Also, it's less work for him to do. He's a fairly old guy,
Yeah.
not as work-driven as he may have once been.
No.
I don't want to make statements about the man or his character. This is just an assumption, but I'm not now presenting the argument to say it definitely will be piecemeal. I'm just saying
It has the possibility.
It's as likely as it isn't.
Yeah.
You know, we're sat directly on the 50-50 line right now. There is no evidence point pushing us one way or the other. Any possibility is a possible reality, and that's not good given what could be.
Yeah.
But there's only so much we can say about Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't exist, but it will.
It will. It's Schrodinger's cat. It's both alive and dead.
It both has a story and it don't.
Yeah.
I think that's a good note to end on, to be honest. We've been talking for a good while. It's been an hour and 20 minutes.
Nice.
We did, and we were talking before this as well, so fucking hell. Thank you for listening, if anyone's still here.
Bye.
Fucking bye. I need to piss.